Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Happy Father's Day, everybody. Today, I'm just going to take a walk down memory lane with memories growing up with my dad. And some of them are going to be good, some of them maybe not so good, but here we go. And there were some funny things. And all along the route, the one thing that I want everybody to remember, there was always a lot of love there with my dad, even though for a short time, because of my work career, uh, conflicted with my dad's self religion. And my dad was a Buddhist religion. And so that uh, he wasn't a violent person. He was very mild mannered person. He tried to be tough, but yet uh, he wasn't. And by the time I was in my teens, my dad was terrified of me because of how proficient I had become in martial arts and how dangerous I was. And I was, some of you out there who went to school with me, you may have seen me in action or have seen some of my work when I was at Frick Junior High or at Oakland High. I was very good at martial arts, and then I got better. But anyway, my dad was he was a good guy. He didn't get into trouble, so to speak. He did get into trouble once, and that was uh, in 1963, I believe it was. I was about 3 years old. I slept in a crib in my parents' home in their bedroom because our first home or their first home was in East Oakland on 64th Avenue. In fact, the address was 2608 64th Avenue. And so my sister, who was the younger child, they put her in the far room because she was a really noisy baby, if you know what I mean. And I was the opposite. I was very quiet, and so my parents had to constantly check on me to see if I was okay, and I usually was. But anyway, back to that one incident. I don't know what the circumstances were, but it was shortly after my dad had gotten home. It could have been an incident because he was working part time to make extra money so that they can get a better home, a bigger home with more bedrooms. And so he was working a part time job at night over in West Oakland at a liquor store. And so I do remember this incident, because my dad told me about it, and it was the only time he killed a person. He literally shot and killed the robber at the liquor store, and it affected him mentally like you wouldn't believe. And in fact, he had a mental episode in 1963, and I think that's what this was, because he came home. It was very late at night, or early morning, I should say, about 2 in the morning, and he was angry about something. I don't know what it was. I was only three, and it was, it woke me up. He ended up throwing one of the bedroom's vases across the wall, across the room, and smashed it on the wall above me, uh, over my crib. And I got out of my crib and got underneath my crib. And shortly thereafter, the police were there. I don't know all of what was said, but that was the only time Dad got into trouble, really, with the police. The only other time that there was police action was because we had a really bad neighbor right next door who, back in the 70s, the dog that everybody wanted and had back then was the Doberman Pinscher. And so we had one of the problem children living right next door to us at the time. And he was high school age, and he used his dog as a weapon to intimidate and scare people. And so that's what he did to my sister and myself. And if it wasn't for our family's Belgian Shepherd, Queenie, intercepting that dog every time. That Doberman Pinscher he literally would take the dog from his home, walk up to our place, look for us, and then turn that dog loose on us. And the dog would come charging in, and our Belgian Shepherd would intercept that dog every time. She was really quick. And then on top of that, the dog also had to contend with the wiener dog. The wiener dog couldn't fight because he's not very tall, but he's gnawing on that Doberman's ankles. I mean, he's chewing a circle around both those ankles. That dog's doing a dance at the same time. He's trying to stand up and fight with my Belgian Shepherd. And then on top of that, my sister's little tuxedo cat, Kitty, Tinky was her name. She was a 7-pound, mean as can be cat, a little black and white tabby. And once in that fight, that dog fight that was going on with the Shepherd, the Doberman, and the Wiener dog, all involved at the time, the cat now leaped from this tree stump area onto the back of the Doberman. And not only did she have all 4 legs and claws buried into that, but she also had a good hold of neck muscles in her teeth also. So that dog got triple teamed. And that slowed the dog up enough where my dad came out and shot that dog with a .22 rifle and killed it. So that was the big thing that really happened. And the only time my dad was really manly, I would say. And he did use a gun. He didn't get in any trouble. The guns were registered to him, and the dead dog, because the neighbors also saw what was going on, and there was also a record of this teen causing that kind of problems in the neighborhood. My dad had warned that family next time that dog came up, he was going to shoot and kill it if they didn't do anything. And so that's what he ended up doing. But those are just some of the few instances. And then a lot of you asked about that Gilligan's Island boat that my dad bought. Man, that thing was a joke. Dad bought that in 1967 for $500. It had a seized engine. So he went in knowing that this POS boat had a bad engine. And so he spent the next year rebuilding the engine. And finally got it running and got it to a point where he was ready to put it in the water. It was a year later, so 1968. And there was the lowest cost marina back then was Red Rock Marina, and it was literally at the base, the north side of the San Rafael Bridge. There used to be a marina there. You'll see the remnants of it whenever you cross the San Rafael Bridge from the East Bay side going to the Marin side. But that's where we kept that. And Dad kept that boat there, and it wasn't cheap. Back in the day, the mooring was $10 a month. Yeah, $10 a month for that boat. And this was a time when people weren't making the big money like folks are these days. And then one of the things that I have to say, that boat was nothing but problems. We never made any really good memories with it, because the few times that it did manage to get out of the harbor and into the bay, the engine had cooling issues. And so a lot of times the engine just seized up right there or stalled out because it got overheated in the bay. And Dad didn't have a radio on the boat, and this was before cell phones. So it was a pretty scary situation a lot of times. And the one time that my mother went out, or Dad took a whole bunch of us out. It was Mom, Dad, the family, plus we brought a family friend, Dick Jung. Dick Jung, he was the owner at that time of Lantern Restaurant from in Oakland, Chinatown. He was a very good personal family friend and longtime friend, and also a neighbor who lived just about 5 blocks away from where my parents' home was in the Oakland Hills. So anyway, engine sees boats drifting, and we're heading for a big the Chevron. It's the Chevron dock out there where the ships pull up and unload. And so anyway, we were engines dead in the water, so we can't do anything. We don't have a radio on the boat. We don't have a. There's no such thing as telephones back then on mobile phones yet. Um, so we were SOL, shit out of luck, and drifting with the tide and the wind. And so the dad cheaped out again and put a car horn instead of a proper marine grade horn that would last or operate in the saltwater environment. And so the horn that Dad put on there, I could have yelled louder than the thing, because saltwater had rusted the vibrating mechanism in there that makes the horn operate. So anyway, we're drifting. Dad's saying, "Oh, we gotta stop the drift," and while I work on the engine. And so he tells Dick Jung, "Hey, Dick, go up to the bow and throw the anchor off so we can stop drifting." And so Dick Jung does the exact thing that my dad asked, which is the way it should be. So he tossed the anchor. Everybody sees the anchor, but then the thing that they didn't notice, there was no rope attached to it. That was, while it was funny, it was also disturbing, because that anchor that was supposed to stop our drift, and we just continued drifting. So Dick Jung literally threw a $50 anchor overboard with no rope attached to it, and my dad was he didn't notice that there was no rope. And so about 5 minutes later, we're still drifting, and my dad's wondering, he's like, "Why are we still drifting?" And he said, "I saw you throw the anchor overboard. Did you tie it up?" Dick Jung said, "You didn't say anything about tying anything anywhere. He just said go up there and throw the anchor off the bow. That's what I did." So these are some of the memorable moments that you can't forget on things like that. And those are the things that really stand out and make memories fun to look back at. And so that's why I liked, I wanted to do some of that. But there were a lot of fireworks. My dad loved fireworks. He loved playing with firecrackers. I started playing with firecrackers when I was like 5 years old in the Oakland Chinatown for the Chinese New Year celebrations. And so things like that. Those were great memories. And Dad would take us during the civil rights issues and all the protests going on around the Bay Area. What my dad did, he kept me close by, and we hung out a lot in Chinatown. I knew everybody in Chinatown back then. All the restaurant owners, all the shopkeepers, the fish markets, the restaurants. All I had to do was just go into somewhere, and I would get fed. So it was never an issue. And then there was a little club down there that my dad's friend Morris used to run, and it was on 8th, just before Webster. It was in the building that Lantern was, which is now Asian Health Services, AHS, because that formerly was Lantern Restaurant, and it went out of business in the late 1990s. Um, a lot of the economy had turned, and so all the big banquet restaurants there in the Oakland Chinatown disappeared. You know, Box Inn, which was down the street, our family friend Jack, he put that building there, and he built that building. He tore down an old falling down building that was from my great grandfather's construction time, and put up that new building, which is which currently houses the Cathay Bank in the Oakland Chinatown. So that was Jack, and then Dick Jung, his dad actually started Lantern back in the 40 or yeah late 40s, early 50s, and then Dick took over. Richard Jung, Dick we called him, and took over from his dad when his dad got too old, and he grew the business. Because it before only occupied the ground floor level. What was above it, what back in the day were SROs. We called them back then flop houses for the poor. But SROs, there were 2 floors of SROs above the restaurant, and that's where your poor, your alcoholics, people, that's where they they went, because there was a entrance, a doorway for them to go up stairs to the second and third floor of that building, and then uh, go to their SRO. But then when Oakland outlawed all the SROs, I think it was about the mid 80s, where all the SROs in Oakland literally disappeared. And there was a revitalization of the Oakland Chinatown. They got rid of a majority of the SROs. The only ones that were still present at the time was a slumlord who became an Oakland mayor, and she didn't do well. She was a one and done mayor back in the early 2000s. So you can figure out who that is. But she was an Oakland slumlord of SROs, and one of the most well known in the Oakland Chinatown until she got rid of all of them. She had to get rid of all of them because she ran. She ran for city council, and then that was a conflict there that she had to get rid of. And then when she ran for mayor, there was no way that she could be owner of these really shady SROs in the Oakland Chinatown. So she got rid of all of that, and they were all removed from Oakland Chinatown. SROs don't exist anymore like they used to back in the, and so that's why you see so much homelessness in Oakland, because the SROs that used to house those folks, you know, were banned in Oakland, and they were dismantled and removed. So now we got homelessness. But those those are some of the times that I grew up in, and they were very tumultuous times. And one of the things that I really loved at even though I wasn't supposed to be in the bar, because the relationship between the police and government in Oakland Chinatown was very different back then. So I got to hang out in the bar, and I'd go in the back room, and there was a little bowling machine. I loved that little bowling machine, and there was a pool table back there and some pinball machines. So I'd just go, take a couple of dollars in the back, and that's where I hide out. And so that's why nobody ever saw me in the bar there, because I was in the entertainment room a little further down the business aisle there. But those were fun days, good days. And then Dad had Dick Jung was a very serious member of the community, Chinese community Wasung Club at the time, and so my dad joined for a number of years. He volunteered and worked with the organization, which still exists today. And but things have changed drastically for Hwaseong, obviously, but and then the Oakland community is vastly different from what it was when I grew up, and I I, I kind of wandered away from the my community, the Oakland Chinatown, in the mid '80s because I was preparing for my new career. Even though I had jobs, I had a failed marriage at that time. Oh, yeah, that was a real good one. My first wife was a horrible person. She was Caucasian, but she came from a lower class family. Her family moved out here from Michigan, uh, and her dad worked for a big coffee company called Superior back in the day. And so anyway, it was a horrible situation, and my first wife was ended up being very racist, and in fact had insulted all of my friends of color to a point where nobody wanted to, if my first wife was present, nobody wanted to even talk to me. So she was a horrible person, and she cheated on me. She was terrible. My dad told me that she is likely to do this because she is a gold digger. He spotted a gold digger before I did, and she was, and I'm glad I did divorce her. I found out that she had cheated on me. She had gotten pregnant by another man. I hadn't had any sex with her in over 6 months at that point, so I knew it wasn't mine. And then when I found the Planned Parenthood bill in her purse, because she hid that from me, and she was so stupid. She told me that the bill was practically coming. I didn't know what it was, but she said, because I worked two jobs at that time trying to keep my head above water because she had buried my ass, with the house, and then she had maxed out every credit card that we had without my knowing. And on top of that, we had two car payments. I mean, I was seriously in debt. Uh, I was stressed, and my dad simply said, you just need to leave her. And I said, I can't. I've got all these bills I'm trying to pay. And he said, my dad did say you need to talk to a lawyer. My mother said you need to talk to a lawyer, and that's what I did. I got one, and I did what I needed to do, and that was file number one. The first thing I did was I filed for the divorce. So I divorced, uh, got that done. Then with the divorce, and she was served with that paper, I then filed bankruptcy. And the bankruptcy, uh, that was a very humiliating situation there, to do this in federal court, and they literally put you in the hot seat and embarrass the fuck out of you to anybody else who's in the courtroom there. But typically, those that are in the courtroom are for the same reason that you're in there, to get the finalization of the bankruptcy. And so that's what I did, and that's how I got rid of the debt from the horrible overpayment and overpriced home, my first home that I purchased. And that was because of the first wife, her family, and the crooked people that she associated with convinced me to sign on the dotted line. And that was going to be hedging my housing costs into the future, which was a complete lie because after talking with people, I should have seen all the holes in their story. But it's a housing market back then, which is exactly like how it is today. And so that's why I tell you, do not buy a home currently. Things are going to change. It's just taking some time. And the reason why I say that, back then there were a lot of businesses, very well long-term businesses that were thriving, and suddenly they were in deep trouble. a company that I had worked for, which everybody at the time, because the automotive industry was so strong, what everybody thought the automotive industry was bulletproof. And I worked for Grand Auto for 8 years. I had gone to part time in the latter part of the 80s after I had started the divorce proceedings. But anyway, that industry wasn't that safe because Grand Auto ended up laying off 1/3 of all of its employees, and I managed to uh, avoid being cut because I had been with the company for so long, not because of my rank, my title as an assistant manager. That had nothing to do with it because they could have taken that away from me easily, uh, and that's what companies did back then. Um, but very different time, and Father's Day. A lot of you folks may not know I was never a dad. I've been a stepdad, but I've never been or I have any children of my own, and that was by design. I had laid that out from the beginning of my life because I knew that I was going to be doing something uh, where a family would be detrimental, and kind of like a ball and chain. And so that's uh, one of the reasons why I never had children. And in my line of work with counterterrorism, also known as spying, if you're caught, or if they find information on you, you can be compromised. And we've seen many uh, high profile and very powerful people be compromised that way. I was not going to be one of those people that could be compromised. So I did not have any kids. And going into my marriage, my second marriage with the second wife, she couldn't have any children anyway. So she had self sterilized, and I was fine with that. And she didn't want any more kids. Um, so that was that one of the reasons why I never had kids. For those of you that always are asking, well, what about your children? I don't have any. My stepson, um, we don't have a close relationship. We never did really. He was one of those kids who's kind of independent and hard headed. He was exactly like his dad, and his dad was a real pain in the butt for the years that I was together with, married to my wife and raising the stepson. And he hasn't gotten any smarter. So, um, and the thing was that he had my stepson had two incredibly intelligent parents. His dad, while being he was an outlaw biker type. He did settle down, and he worked for the city of Oakland in heavy machinery repair. So uh, he repaired heavy equipment for the city of Oakland for a number of years, and he lived down on the end of Fifth Avenue on the water. I still have pictures of the working barge that he lived on for 30 years. And I tell you, he was such a smart man, is that he got to live in absolute prime location and live as a bohemian. If you know what bohemian living is, that's what John did. And he was a pretty tough dude. He was a Montana boy, big guy, nearly 6 feet. Uh, and when I met him, he was already 260 pounds and had a bad attitude. And so our first meeting didn't go really well. I he made verbal threats, and I don't do well with threats, and so I challenged him. And one of the things my second wife told me that he always carries and so I made sure I carried two. And so it was a good standoff. But I did win the event because when he did make a move, he found out that that was not a smart thing, because I told him next time I'm going to be pulling the trigger, because I had him on the ground and I had my gun to his head. He had his he was reaching for his gun on his hip, and so it was mutual. And after that, we never had any real big issues. So two dads being tough with each other, but mutual respect. I don't like having to hurt anybody unnecessarily, because with my high level of mixed martial arts skills, that's what happens. I don't get hurt. It's everybody else, because not only do I have three different mixed martial arts under my belt, but also I was raised in the Oakland streets. I was raised East Oakland street rules. And East Oakland street rules, there are no rules. That means you use and do everything and anything possible. And that's what I did. Oh, I was one of the dirtiest, nastiest, ugliest fighters out there on the street, because there you were not going to, have me black out. You were not going to knock my ass out. I knocked you out, or I broke a lot of bones. I broke bones in seconds, because one of my sayings was 8 to tap, 10 to snap, 12, 8 to tap, 10 to snap, 12 to nap. And nap, I put you out. You were out, unconscious, or the other thing. So that was my life. And so anyway, I've rambled on enough here, but those are some of my memories with my dad growing up. We did reconcile towards the end there, just before he ended up having his stroke that put him in the hospital and then into assisted living. We talked about it because there were a lot of things I just can't talk about about my work and what I do, and because those are all highly classified, top secret, compartmentalized information. And so even my dad, with a low level United States clearance, I can't talk to him about stuff, just like I can't talk to you about a lot of stuff of what our government does. So thanks for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of Father's Day, and we'll see you next time.